Hi there, and welcome to Green Shoe Conversations. I'm Stephanie Cochran, the Executive Director for the Green Shoe Foundation, and I'm excited you guys are joining us for episode 44. With us today, I've got my awesome partner in crime, Miss Rebecca Holt, and she's going to introduce our special guest, and Rebecca's going to take over the podcast. So, Rebecca, it's all yours.
All right. I'd love to hear from you, though, as we go through this.
Oh, you can't keep it quiet. That's the problem.
Well, I asked my dear friend, Wendy Sparks, to come be a part of this podcast today. So we're going to talk about some things. But first of all, I want to say, Wendy, I've told you this, but Wendy is one of my personal heroes. So she amazes me with the work she does in our community. And just her drive to do things with the American Lung Association. So I'm so glad that you're here. We've been friends for over 10 years now? Yeah. So we've done some work together, but today we just completed the Fight for Air Climb with the American Lung Association. So we were just going to chat with you, Wendy, about that experience and just some of the work that you do in the community. So welcome. I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I wore my green for Team Nikki and Green Shoe Foundation.
Awesome.
I have to say, Wendy, I went through, so we'll talk about Team Nikki, but you want to show your shirt?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously we have different colors. I have tubs of these shirts and I couldn't find my green one. So I went back to the original Team Nikki,
yes,
my first Team Nikki shirt.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, thanks for wearing that. Okay, so let's just let's start with Team Nikki. Who is Team Nikki?
Okay. I was kind of thinking about this, and Team Nikki's kind of twofold. It started when Nikki was ill, and I like to say this because she spent 60 days in the hospital and she never spent a night alone. She had who we call Team Nikki friends staying with her. Becca was one of them. We just rotated, and we also did a big fundraiser because we didn't know if she was going to be able to work, what the expenses were going to be. And that's where Becca's shirt comes in. We sold those shirts, and that's the OG Team Nikki shirt. So then it kind of evolved into the following year. Someone she met at the hospital, her PT at the hospital, did the Fight for Air Climb and had a shirt and did it for Nikki. And she was like, "You need to get a team together to do this." So 8 years ago, we got a team together and started doing the Fight for Air Climb for the American Lung Association. Yeah. So that's kind of how Team Nikki came about. And I like to say that not just the people that are climbing are part of Team Nikki, the people that tell her story, the people that donate, the people that share our fundraisers, and the people like you that let me tell her story. So Team Nikki is all encompassing in my opinion.
It's a lot of things. It's a lot of fun too at times. Yeah. And Wendy, speaking of Nikki, and you and I both kind of know the story, but will you just give a little bit of information about Nikki, who she was? She was one of my best friends.
She was in mental health. She got her degree and her master's, and she worked with foster children. She worked with inmates. She worked at the Oklahoma City Indian Clinic, and that's where she met Rebecca. That was always her passion. Like I'm an accountant. So, I don't want to deal with people. I want to do my job and move on. So I always admired the situation she had to deal with, and just the families, and she did the whole gamut of things, and that's who she was, and it really goes to the type of person that she was, the support we have every year for donations and people who tell her story when they wear the shirts, and she was just a fantastic person and loved working in mental health. So that's who she was. She loved OU. She loved Captain Morgan, She loved her friends. She loved her family.
Yes, she was an incredible person. Yeah. So one of the things I know that with the American Lung Association, we do the climb, but we also, there's a few years ago, we did Lung Force to raise awareness, because one of the things I learned in experiencing Nikki's diagnosis of lung cancer is it's a silent killer, and it's a silent killer of women. I mean, I'm Nikki's age whenever she got diagnosed. That's a huge realization I had this year. But we've done a lot to raise awareness about how lung cancer impacts women.
Mm-hmm.
They have, the American Lung Association has a specific, it's called Lung Force, that raises money only for lung cancer. Now, the Fight for Air climb that we do raises money for all lung diseases, including lung cancer, including COVID-19 this year. So, Nikki found out that she had lung cancer, just, we call it intuition, we call it a fluke. She had no symptoms, which is kind of to what Becca said about silent killer. Up until the day she passed, she had no lung issues. So she had a heart scan. She drove to work and she saw a billboard that was like $50 heart scan. And she thought, oh, you know, she was always very proactive about her health. Maybe not being the healthiest, but if she ever had an issue, she was the first to go to the doctor. So she went and got a $50 heart scan, and kudos to the Oklahoma Heart Hospital. They saw something on her heart scan. Well, she knew when she left that day that she had nothing wrong with her heart. They said there's no calcium, everything looks good. So when she got a letter in the mail from the heart hospital, she just threw in her back seat. She was like, I don't need to read that right now because they said I was all good. So they called her and they asked her if they got the letter. And she said yes. And they said, you please read it, and you need to see your primary care physician as soon as possible. So that's kind of how that all went down. Like she never had any symptoms, and I don't know when we would have found out. Several months later, probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've done a lot to raise awareness. And then, like you said, we do the Fight for Air climb every year. Was this our 8th year?
This was our 8th year.
Okay. I try not to keep track of it because it's so hard.
I know. And I think at least I hope we can make it to 10.
Yes.
And I kind of feel like, do I really want to stop? I mean, lung cancer is still a thing. Lung disease is still a thing. We do so much for the American Lung Association just for advocacy and research dollars. And I'm just like, do I really want to put a stopping date on that? So I'll probably just let it go as long as these crazy people climb stairs.
Yeah. And say, what exactly is the climb? What do y'all do?
Well, this is the first year that we had it at a stadium. So it was at UCO Stadium. So always before, we'd had it in Leadership Square, and we would climb one tower, we would climb down, we would run across the lobby, we would climb the other tower, climb down, and be done. And we did that for several years. Then we moved to Alliance Bank, and they've been a great sponsor and great supporter of this event. So we went up 19, we rode an elevator down, and we went up 20, and we ended.
The elevator was excellent.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's difficult. And I always say, and I said this just the other day, like, you know why you're doing this 1 minute into the event. You can't breathe. It doesn't matter. I've had marathon runners on our team, super fit people, and they're all like, I never felt this bad when I ran a marathon. It never hurt this bad when I, did other things. So this year was our first year at the stadium, and Wanton Stadium in UCO was wonderful to work with. And a lot of people, well, it was outside due to COVID, obviously. Sure. And I thought people might be hesitant to do it in a stadium because running stairs in a stadium sounds terrible. But everybody was on board to do it. And we didn't, I think it helped because we did the stairwells. We didn't do bleachers because that's dangerous. And I think from polling people, it was one of our best events. It wasn't as difficult. It wasn't as taxing on your lungs. And that's kind of the point of the event. However, it is taxing on your lungs. So We'll see what happens next year. I feel like the American Lung Association will probably still try to do an event outdoors next year, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's exciting to think about. I want to kind of tie this in. I mean, and you know what we do here at Green Shoe and the retreats. I mean, you and I have talked about lots of things, therapy and yoga over the years.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you about is with Team Nikki and the work that we do, like, how has that benefited your emotional wellness? And in some ways, I know for me, my grieving process has been with Team Nikki. And so I was just curious if you would speak to that a little bit.
I think it helps because we're always talking about her. We're always doing something in her honor. I also do a scholarship at my high school in her name. She never really disappears. So you don't have any, you have to deal with it. I mean, I don't have a choice. And I mean, and it's just been super healing for me. It's not the elephant in the room. You know, sometimes when people pass, you don't know what to say. You don't know how to bring it up. That doesn't happen with Nikki. We all talk about her. We all talk about funny stories. We all talk about we wish she was here. So that never happens in this situation. That helps too, because I don't ever have to feel weird about talking about her or bringing her up, or, you know, that people aren't going to know what to say to me. So it's been very healing. We had at this event, we had cardboard cutouts. You know, they've had that this year at the football games in the stadium, baseball games to take
Right.
you know, place of fans. And we had some of Nikki, and it was just encouraging. Now I lost my mother too to cancer, and I couldn't do a cutout of her because I'm just not in the same place with that grieving process as I am with Nikki. But everybody loved the cutouts of Nikki. I mean, it's almost like she's still here in a way.
Well, and I'm thinking you talk about this group of friends that she brought together.
Yes.
And you guys are still, I mean, 8 years, a lot of times after a death, people fall away.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful thing that you guys are still together and doing this. And sounds like we'll still be together. You know, this is, going on and on.
They don't really have a choice, I don't think.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, it is. And it kind of brought, I mean, like Rebecca and some of the others were originally Nikki's friends. I have friends that were originally my college and high school friends, and we've all just kind of merged. We all have our own relationships with each other. And it's such a great group. Like, I can't even comprehend that we have this. And like you said, still 8 years later, and we're still one big happy family.
Yeah. Speaking of, Wendy, we need to schedule a slumber party. We do an annual, sometimes biannual slumber party with all these women, and it's wonderful.
The first one we ever did, Nikki was a big Christmas sweater wearer and Christmas sock wearer. So the first one we had, and everybody just freaked because I gave everybody one of her Christmas sweaters, and we wore it and we take a picture. So it was really cool, because what was I going to do with 15 Christmas sweaters? So I spread the love and gave the Christmas sweaters to all our friends at the first slumber party. But it's just a way we get together. We talk about Nikki and we just bond.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we talk about, I mean, with self-care, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So just doing things to take care of yourself. You know, we've been doing a bingo. I think, Stephanie, you're going to talk about this month. But, you know, one of the things we talk about is to give back to the community. And I know you absolutely, and one of the reasons Wendy is my personal hero is she took this grief and dove headfirst into making change, making a difference, remembering, honoring Nikki. And so that's just amazing. But when someone's thinking about doing something in the community, giving back, just kind of how has that been helpful for your self-care?
I mean, it's pretty much my soul self-care that I do. And a lot of it comes from her, and a lot of it comes from what I think she would expect me to do. Because she would, like I said, she was so proactive in everything. And I like to say, if it would have been the roles reversed, I can't even imagine what would be happening right now, because she was just so proactive and cared about self-care, herself and her friends. And so I do, and we kind of talked about, or I've kind of talked about Becca about, and boundaries too. Like, I don't let it overwhelm me, consume me. I don't put it above everything else, but it's just fits really well into my life. Fundraising, and I get to talk to all my friends and all these Team Nikki people about Nikki, and that helps with my mental wellness with all of this. And Nikki was all about mental wellness. So whatever I do that makes me feel better about my grieving process, I just know that she is looking down and glad that I'm doing that. If I was sitting back now, she would be loving all this, her name everywhere. She was, yeah, she would be loving. So if I was just sitting back, being sad all the time, not doing anything proactive to spread information about this terrible disease, I know she would not be happy. So a lot of that comes from how I think she would want me to be.
Yeah.
I love though how you said in the beginning, it was a way for you to be in your grief. So many times people want to get busy to avoid grieving,
Right.
but you haven't. This has been a way that you could be authentic and be in your grief, which I know is painful, but that allowed you to work through that. And with that, it connected you to this wonderful team and all these people.
Right. It definitely, I definitely knew that just burying my head was not the way. Plus, all my friends, Nikki knows all my friends. I know all hers, and majority of them are therapists. And I don't think they probably would have let me handle it any other way. But
yeah, I don't know. Sometimes therapists are the worst.
Well, I just knew for my mental health, and just the fact that I live in the country, I'm an accountant, I'm not interacting. And so I just felt like this was the best for me, for my grief, to really dig into this and do everything I can. And it's just kind of evolved over the years. I'm actually the board chair for the American Lung Association this year. So I get lots of opportunities like this and to speak about Nikki because of all the work and all the money we raise. So I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah. What would be your advice if someone they were listening to this podcast saying, I want to get involved in the community for a cause? What would be your advice to them?
And I think sometimes people feel like if they can't do the most, if they can't raise millions of dollars, if they can't touch millions of lives, that they're not doing anything. But even something simple that makes you feel happy, like I'm involved in a very small lung cancer support group for lung cancer survivors and caregivers. It's a small group of us, but it's the most fulfilling thing. And a lot of people don't want to do things like that because they feel like, well, I don't have anything to give, or I don't want to talk about my story. But I always say, if you have something to offer someone else, you can help someone else. So even something small like that, it doesn't have to be raising money. Even joining, like a small support group, or you can find an organization that's meaningful to you and join and just volunteer. I volunteer. Everything I do for the American Lung Association obviously is volunteer, and I have other groups and boards I'm on that I volunteer, and it fills your time. It keeps you busy. It lets you talk about your story, your sister, your family. And I don't know what I would do during COVID when I had nothing going on and everything was shut down. I could feel it creeping up because I wasn't able to, get it out. I wasn't able to share it. I wasn't able to be with people and talk about Nikki. And so I could feel it creeping in. But I say just try something, volunteer somewhere. We have volunteers for the climb. You don't have to be an advocate the first day. I think that comes with time.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, because even just a little bit, you don't know how many lives you touch. And right. So I want to go back. So 8 years, and this is just kind of my final question. How much money have we raised the past 8 years?
So just on the Fight for Air climb almost $200,000.
Gosh, that's amazing.
We like this year we raised, and honestly, when we went into this climb, I thought if I can get these core people to climb with me and we can raise $5,000, I'm going to be happy. Well, we ended up raising $20,667 and some odd cents. This year, I mean, people were so generous. And we've done walks like Becca was talking. They don't do those in Oklahoma anymore. We raised 1,000. So we're sitting at 200,000, if not more. So grateful and thankful for that. And it's making a difference. It is making a difference just from the treatments that were available to Nikki 8 years ago. So different now. People in my support group are living lives, they're buying houses, or adopting children. They're feeling good because of immunotherapy and all the other treatments that are available now that weren't available 8 years ago.
Yeah, that is just amazing.
I had no idea. Yeah, 200,000.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And we worked for every penny.
I was about to say, that's not these steps as you walk. So.
And I also like to say, we don't have any big donors. These are $25, $100, $50. My biggest donation was $200. These are 20, 30, 40 people working hard for 6 or 8 months, raising every dollar we can raise.
Yeah. That's what Rebecca said. This is selling candy and sheets and and it's the community. It's, that's coming together with that. And that's what I think that's what makes it so amazing. Wendy, thank you so much for doing this. I cannot tell you.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, your story is just so inspirational. And we want to make sure that gets out there, and especially Nikki's story. I think that, that's so important. And as Rebecca, you mentioned earlier, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so that's something that is important to us here at Green Shoe. We like to call it Mental Health Awareness Year. Part of our mission is to really push breaking that stigma. And it's sad for me to say that even in 2021 that we're still having to talk about this, that it's not okay for people to say when they're not okay. And so we're kind of doing something fun, kind of a fun challenge is we've got a self-care bingo that we're doing for this month. And if you want to play or participate, you can go to our website there's a tab for the hashtag green out. And here it is. And so at the bottom, we've got our Green Shoe bingo. You can play, you can do just up and down bingo, diagonal, or if you want to go for green out and do every single little thing, they're great ideas and things that are so easy to do just to take care of yourself. Take just 60 seconds to give yourself an affirmation 5 times, all of that. But if you guys want to download this, and then there's different ways through our social media platforms, you can check those out, or you can just shoot them straight back to me at info@greenshoe.org. We're going to do a drawing at the end of the month for a self-care and more importantly, Green Shoe swag basket for people. So again, it's just kind of something fun that we're throwing out there. And if you've got any other great ideas, shoot us those ideas. And again, Wendy, thanks again for joining us. And we will see the rest of y'all here in a couple of weeks. During this month, we're having some more guest speakers. So again, I'll have a surprise for y'all next time.